trouble, it's not my fault. All this, I also lose my friends, I lost my baby. That is looking crack, only today want to change. He wanted us, so they couldn't try more like to feel. I'd kill the real, take your life in a second. The table drinks coffee in my kitchen, I mentioned eating every song, I just wanted to go away. You decide to stay in the well. I want to be forgiven, I don't like this kid for money. Sorry I was scared, you're not the way it feels. Like to sleep waiting for someone to come in and kill you. The final thing is that now we're not friends of anything. Cause they gonna kill anyone that feels so powerful. They try to do every new skin of everything is confusing. You will be good but you will be more. You will be good but you will be more. You will be good but you will be more. Alone every day it is a praise of pleasure.
Good morning and welcome to Dynasty 365, where the film will set you free. So far, Michigan has been my most supportive state by listener count divided by population. So today we're going to be talking about the newest offensive weapon for the Detroit Lions, TJ Hockenson. At wide receiver, they've got 26-year-old Kenny Golladay. He's very good and a contested catch specialist, but is more than just that, showing speed and good route running. He's not a complete player yet, but he has shown nice development so far since he's been in the NFL. In 2018, he averaged 7.9 targets per game and compiled 119 targets, 70 receptions, 1,063 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He averaged 15 yards per route, 9 yards per target, and 15 yards per touch, with a 59% catch rate. He should remain a heavy part of the offense and could possibly see his role increase moving forward. Their second receiver is Marvin Jones, who is 29. He's also very good. He's an all-around receiver with consistency issues at times. He's almost a smaller, more agile version of Golladay, in my opinion. In 2018, he averaged 6.9 targets per game, which would have put him on pace for 110 targets, 62 catches, 900 yards, and 9 touchdowns. But he did get hurt right before Week 10. He averaged 15 yards per route, 8 yards per target, 15 yards per touch, with a 57% catch rate. He will remain involved. He could start to decline soon, but not this year, but he is still 29. This year they added Danny Amendola and also lost Golden Tate last year due to trade. Amendola is 34 and misses a ton of games due to injury each year. He's a very tough projection due to that. His 2-year average at New England and Miami would be 83 targets, 60 receptions, 600 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's a slot guy, as is shown by his 10 yards per route, 8 yards per target, 10 yards per touch, and 75% catch rate. He'll be doing his best to replace Golden Tate's role in the offense, who again was traded to Philadelphia partway through the season last year and now is on the Giants. But with the Lions last year, Tate had 69 targets, 44 catches, 517 yards, and 3 touchdowns in 7 games. While he was with the Lions, he averaged 9.9 targets per game and 6 catches per game. All of the other wide receivers on the team combined for 97 targets, 64 receptions, 531 yards, and 3 touchdowns. They had Brandon Powell, who looked okay in limited action, but nothing special. Then they added Travis Fulgham in the 6th round of the draft, and he's another contested catch specialist. At the tight end position, last year, with all games combined, they only had 33 targets, 24 receptions, 350 yards, and a touchdown. In the offseason, they added Jesse James, who is 25 and has averaged 54 targets, 37 catches, 380 yards, and 3 touchdowns, and a higher volume passing offense in Pittsburgh. Over that time, he averaged 10 yards per route, 7 yards per target, 10 yards per touch, and a 70% catch rate. Besides Hockenson, they also added a 7th round underrated pass catcher in Isaac Nwata, but he's a very unathletic prospect. Detroit uses their running backs a ton in the passing game. They've got Theo Riddick, who is 28 and who racked up 74 targets, or 5.3 a game, 61 receptions, 380 yards, and no touchdowns last season. His 3-year average is 71 targets, 56 catches, 400 yards, and 2 touchdowns, with 8 yards per route and 6 yards per target, and a 77% catch rate. Last season, he started to lose work to Kerryon Johnson, who was 22. He averaged 39 targets in the games he was healthy for an average of 3.9 per game. If he would have stayed healthy, he was on a pace for 62 targets, 51 catches, 340 yards, and 2 touchdowns with an 82% catch rate. He was also averaging 7 yards per route and 6 yards per target. Kerryon's overall role should increase if he can stay healthy, but that has been a concern both in college and now his pro career. They also signed C.J. Anderson in the offseason, and at this point in his career is pretty much a non-factor in the passing game, but he can catch. The Lions have Matthew Stafford at quarterback, who is 31 years old. He threw for barely under 3,800 yards and 21 touchdowns and a 90 passer rating, and all of these numbers were a step down from his career averages. He's a gunslinger and athletic pocket mover who looked like he lost some athleticism last season. To me, he will throw to anyone, but he does read defenses pretty well. He also has a poor history of tight end production. The Lions were 20th in passing yards per game, which was one spot behind Denver, where Fant landed, and they were still behind Denver when Case Keenum was the quarterback there. The Lions were also 22nd in passing touchdowns, 24th in total yards, 25th in points, and 11th in pass attempts. The offensive line was ranked 12th in pass protection, but honestly that seems too high for me after watching the games, but that's what it says. They were 20th in yards created for the running back, 14th in power, and bottom 10 in all other run metrics. They didn't draft any offensive linemen, but they did add 4 undrafted free agents. The overall offense was 20th in yards per drive, 21st in points per drive, 5th in time of possession per drive, and 20th in run percentage, with 41.3% of the plays being runs. The Lions' defense was 10th in yards per game, 16th in points per game, 10th in rushing yards allowed per game, and 8th in passing yards allowed per game, resulting in a 6-10 record. The Lions used 5 picks on defense alone, a 2nd-round middle linebacker, 3rd-round free safety, 4th-round D-end, 7th-round defensive tackle, and also added 7 defensive undrafted free agents. This has been a bizarre strategy to me, as defense was the strength of the team last season, yet they went heavy on defense and only used 4 draft picks on offense. 1st-rounder T.J. Hockenson and 3 others, with none being drafted before the 6th round. Their head coach is Matt Patricia, who is entering his 2nd year as the head coach. He's a longtime defensive coordinator of the Patriots and seems to pretty much emulate a lot of Belichick's tendencies. Since he's a defensive-minded head coach and looking at their team's strengths and weaknesses, logic would say that they would try to run the ball more this year, but they did throw a lot last season, so it's hard to be certain. They also added former Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator Darrell Bevell, who is coming from the team that has a run-first offense and last year led the league in run-call play percentage. The offseason additions of 4 tight ends and C.J. Anderson further lead me to believe that a run-first offense is in store for the Lions in 2019. So T.J. Hockenson, the 8th overall pick in the draft out of the University of Iowa, was my pre-draft tight end 3, is 6'4" 3/4 inches, 251 pounds with 9.5 inch hands and a 77.875 inch wingspan. He is 21.86 years old, which is fairly young for this class. Hockenson has a middle of the pack weight divided by height, below average span divided by height, and hand size divided by height. At the combine, Hockenson had a middle of the pack 4.740, 2nd best vert at 37.5 inches, 2nd best broad jump at 123 inches, a middle of the pack bench press with 17 reps, and also ran the 2nd best 3-cone and 20-yard shuttle drills with times of 7.02 seconds and 4.18 seconds respectively. The good things I saw on film from TJ: he's quick off of the ball, nice releases, shows effective physicality at the route breakpoint, which essentially means he's good at pushing off when he doesn't have separation. He's a hands catcher, has good blocking form, will block to the whistle, can run certain routes very well with deception and hard foot plants. He has a great stance as an inline tight end, adjusts to the ball and can catch in traffic, great timing when releasing on play action fakes, has soft hands, is a very sticky blocker, meaning the guy he's blocking isn't able to slide off of him quickly. He's also a good cut blocker and has the highest blocking IQ by a tight end that I have seen yet. He also consistently avoids rerouters, has good acceleration, decent head fakes in his route running, gives effort and uses proper technique even when he's blocking away from where the play is designed, shows great contact balance and high football IQ once he has the ball in his hands, makes 90-degree cuts in his routes, which if you've been listening to the wide receiver breakdowns, most of them don't even do that, so he clearly understands the importance of that. Can catch low balls with his hands, blocks through the side hip to effectively knock guys off balance. So this is a specific scenario where, say TJ is the right side tight end, and there's a defensive end lined up on his tackle, and the ball and the play is going to the left, so away from where Hockenson is lined up. Instead of blocking in the back on the guy that you can't get to, or trying to push his shoulder pad, you want to get on that hip and push through the hip to knock the defender off balance. In pass protection, he has awareness of where blitzers are coming from to become the hot route receiver. Great ball tracking and effort in double clutch situations. That means he has more than one chance to catch the football but couldn't catch it on the first try. He creates separation with physicality, even during unfavorable leverage situations. So this would be when he's running a deep out route and the safety is already 1 yard to his outside. Hockenson can still use physicality to get across that defender's face and get open. Can block almost all defensive linemen. Very few drops. He can hurdle defenders. He recognizes when their body lean tells him that they're going to go low. Great awareness of when to peel off during a combo block. Combo block is essentially a double team block where the tight end knows he's going to have to pick up another free defender at some point throughout the play. That is literally his best quality, just like Irv Smith and the inside power blocks. He also maintains possession of the ball through contact with the ground, and he pushes the ball carrier forward when he's held up. The bad things I saw on film were late reactions, lazy at times. He overruns athletic players' blocks consistently. He sometimes can't get to his blocking target, so that just means he lacks the burst and acceleration or football IQ to beat the defender to the point of attack. He has very real side-to-side agility issues. He can't separate with athleticism against many linebackers and defensive backs with speed. He lacks the urgency to get to his blocking target at times, fails to throw his body in front of the blocking target at times. His jumping and vertical game that you see when he hurdles defenders and at the combine doesn't match up with what he puts on film at the catch point. He waits for contact instead of delivering the blow far too often when in space. Has a horrible stance as a wide receiver. Although he doesn't get rerouted often, when he does get rerouted, he's thrown off of his route significantly. He's not good as a second level blocker due to side-to-side agility issues. Second level means not a down defensive lineman, but a linebacker or safety. He consistently whiffs completely on athletes. Same in pass protection, not just the run game, and then he holds when he is beat in that side-to-side agility game. He lacks explosion on his route breaks. As a ball carrier, he is always caught from behind. He doesn't extend his hands far enough when catching or above his head very often. He very rarely breaks tackles outside of hurdling defenders. He does get pancaked by strong D linemen due to having too high pad level from time to time. He consistently fails to separate with speed and athleticism. Some defensive linemen are too powerful for him, lacks speed and burst, and doesn't have very many contested catches on film. So these tight ends are complicated. There's a lot to take in, both good and bad, but overall, I would call him Austin Hooper plus. I think he will have trouble separating with athleticism and will have very sporadic production week to week, especially in year one. As with most tight ends, I think he'll be touchdown dependent, but based on where he's going in rookie drafts, I don't want a touchdown dependent tight end where he's being taken. He must win with routes and football IQ only. He simply has not shown the ability to out-athlete the guy covering him consistently. He also landed with a quarterback that has never had a fantasy relevant tight end on a low efficiency passing offense with a quarterback that looks to be on the apparent downside of his career. It could be a 1 year aberration, but with the offensive coordinator and head coach philosophies and their offseason moves, it's going to look like a ball control and run first offense to me. If you're a Lions fan, the great news is that he will improve your team tremendously. He's an amazing blocker. He does a lot of little things that help your team win the play more than accrue fantasy points for your team. But as a fantasy player, I find him extremely overrated. He can do some nice things in the passing game, but I believe he was drafted 8th overall primarily for his blocking more than his ability to have 100-yard games and consistent production in the receiving arena week in and week out. Noah Fant is in what was even last year a better passing offense with Case Keenum at quarterback to one with Joe Flacco and Drew Lock. Kahale Warring is now paired up with Deshaun Watson, and Warring is a much more fluid athlete. TJ Hockenson is an amazing blocker who's probably going to have a long career, but I think his fantasy totals are going to be unpredictable week to week, as it will depend on whether or not he can trick a defender with routes, not athleticism. The upside and diversity of having the ability to separate with routes and athleticism of Fant and Warring, and both of those players' super underrated blocking skills, leads to my rank of Hockenson as my third tight end off the board. In the NFL, you only need a certain level of blocking ability to remain on the field. It's good when you're elite, you will get more snaps, but it's not necessary. Right now, Hockenson is being drafted in fantasy drafts more for his blocking and draft capital invested due to his blocking skill than his receiving skill. I love Hawk as a football player and believe the NFL draft got it right selecting him first, but for fantasy, I love Fant and Warring more. I've got no problem with drafting a tight end over most other players this year, but the current price is just insane to me and indicates an unrealistic expectation of his first year production and ceiling potential week to week and over the course of a season. My prediction for first year production of these three tight ends would go Fant, then Hawk, then Warring in year one, and over their career, Fant, and then Warring, and then Hawk. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about Drew Lock, quarterback of the Denver Broncos. Your happy song of the day is Old Thing Back with the Notorious B.I.G. and Ja Rule. The football song of the day is The Way I Am by Eminem. If you're a Lions fan that really wants to draft TJ Hockenson, I apologize. But as I've said before, he's already on your real life team. There's no reason to draft him in fantasy and be disappointed. Thanks for listening today. Hope you enjoyed the show. As always, if you want to support me or access to paid content, you can go to patreon.com/365_Dynasty. You've been listening to Dynasty 365, where the film will set you free.
So much trouble, it's not my fault, all this I also lose my friends, I lost my baby that is smoking crack, only today want to change. He wanted that something could give it a try, well I do feel I'd skill the grill, take your life in a second. Today my dreams coffee in my kitchen, I mentioned in every song, I just wanted to go away. You decide to stay in the well. I want to be forgiven, I don't like this kid for money. Sorry I was scared, you're not the way it feels. Like to sleep waiting for someone to come in and kill you. The final thing is stop now, and not our friends of anything. Go they gonna kill anyone that feels so powerful. They trip out you every your skin of everything is confusing. You will be good, but you will be more. You will be good, but you will be